one of my professors, who was very much one of my saints, his name is Rupert Garcia, political artist. He's from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He's still alive. He used to say, if everything you make succeeds, you're not fucking trying hard enough. In my studio, I sort of live by that.
Welcome to the Shaping Freedom podcast, where we dive into conversations that inspire personal growth, transformation, and clarity in challenging times. I'm your host, Lisane Basquiat. Today, I am particularly honored and excited to sit down with Titus Kaphar, an artist, filmmaker, and storyteller whose work consistently challenges the way that we see ourselves, our histories, and our relationships. He paints and shares the unseen, provides center stage for the unheard, and consistently challenges the narratives that we've been given. As a visual artist, Titus creates beautiful pieces that don't just adorn the walls of beautiful spaces. They disrupt, question, and demand that we cannot ignore the full truth. His work sparks conversation that is as much about how we confront our past, reclaim our voices, and use creativity as a path to transformation, as it is about art. In this episode, we'll go beyond the art and into the heart of the matter: forgiveness, the complexities of father-son relationships, breaking generational cycles, and how creativity can be a path to healing, not just for individuals, but for entire communities. Titus first took us inside his world with Shut Up and Paint, a documentary that revealed the struggle of being a Black artist in an industry that wants the art, but not the message. Now he has taken an even more personal turn with Exhibiting Forgiveness, his debut feature film that is deeply personal and emotionally charged. It's an exploration of family, healing, and reconciliation. Titus is an artist with a rally cry, a call to reimagine history, confront the past, and carve out space for a more honest and compassionate future. If you've ever struggled with forgiveness, with expressing your creativity, or with your ability to unapologetically own and tell your own story, then this episode is for you.
Wow. Can I have a copy of that? That was beautiful.
Sure. Sure.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
I think that's my favorite introduction.
What?
Yeah,
I am winning this morning.
Wow. I'm so happy to
felt
be
it
here.
as I was writing it. I felt it. It's so funny because we talked about the fact that we spoke briefly right after the screening in New York, and I have watched you from afar, and there's so much to explore. There's so much to know about you. And what I really appreciate about you, most of all, is your courage. And the fact that you're this incredible artist who creates this energy of visual art. And you're also telling your story. So there's the art and there's a man and there's a message. And what I see is that you have a real commitment and integrity around bringing those three together and making us see them as a whole, not just as a collector of fine art or someone who's watching a film. You're really curating the way that we see you and allowing us in. And I find that incredibly brave and unique and inspiring.
I appreciate that. When you say that, I become very aware that my reason for operating that way is because of my sons. I recognize that how I live my life in the world and in the home is a model for them. And I want them to be able to be whole. I want them to be able to access and engage the entire spectrum of their emotion. I don't want them to be blocked off from one side, or I don't want them to feel like I am, um, I can only deal in the space of anger. I can only deal in the space of pain. I can only deal in the space of fear. I want them to be able to deal in the space of joy. And so I am, I am very much thinking about the way that I exist in the world as a whole person. So I appreciate that you, that's seen.
It's seen very loudly. It's so funny. I was just thinking, I have a son, Joseph. And
How old is
as
he?
you were talking, Joseph, how
How
old
old?
is he?
Mhm.
Oh, he's a grown ass man.
Okay. Okay.
Joseph is 42.
Oh man.
He's a
You,
I'm telling you.
you have a
I'm
42-year-old son?
I have a 42-year-old son. I do.
My mind is blown right
I
now.
like that. No.
You're a time traveler for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I had Joseph 3 weeks after my 18th birthday.
Wow.
And as you were talking about your sons and what you're doing, and you're taking what I shared about what we see,
Hmm.
and explaining kind of what's beneath it, which is what you want your sons to see. Uh, I started thinking about my son Joseph, who in many, many ways has done the same thing. And I think a lot of men who are paying attention make this transition from wherever they were to understanding that it's
Hmm.
them, that they are the model,
Yeah.
and that a lot of that, while a lot of us were taught, or we believed that anger was the only emotion, it's either anger or super happy,
Yeah.
right?
Joy and anger.
but
Yeah.
even joy, I think joy is different than
I would agree
happy,
with you. I would agree with
you
you.
know.
Yep.
And I've his language is the language of, this is what I want my son to see.
Yeah.
I need to resolve this because of my son,
Yeah.
Xavier, my grandson. I need to, who, I need to, I'm thinking this way because of my son. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that accountability, that what you're doing is bigger than Titus.
The thing about that accountability and about sharing that and being open is at some point I realized I need to I need to allow my sons to see me fail. And that was a hard thing to realize that, um, and it actually became a realization through watching my sons participate in sports and recognizing how important it is to learn how to lose and get back up and play again and continue the game, and recognizing that that's not about sports, that's about life. And so I was, very willing to share my successes when things are going well, celebrate with the family. But when things are wrong, Dad, is everything okay? I'm good. I'm good. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's all right. It's all right. You sure? You don't seem, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I said, I'm all right. I'm good. And beginning to realize that it's actually really beneficial for them to see me struggle. Like, this is hard for me. This is what dad is going through right now. And this is how I'm processing it. And that I teach them that the process is sharing, that I can be open with that, with those losses. And we can talk through that. And I don't have to be ashamed about it, that it happens. And otherwise, I came to realize what I'm teaching them is I'm teaching them to shove it all in. I'm
Mm-hmm.
teaching them that when things get hard, it's not safe to have a conversation about it. That the celebration we do together, but the losses and the sorrow we do that alone, and that's not the way that I want them to operate in the world.
Because there's shame in that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it also helps to, sometimes young people, I think, believe that you go from like 0 to 100, and if all they see is that selfie moment, whatever that looks like, whether it's, dad at an opening, or, you
Yeah,
know, uh, folks clapping for your film or whatever your successes look like, um, they become disillusioned about the journey and the work that actually goes into it.
Yeah, I mean that is one of the large challenges of society today is like, we do see those selfie moments, as you say, on people's feed, and that becomes, oh, their life is perfect. Look at how, knowing damn well that that's not real.
Not at
Like,
all.
I don't know why.
Not
I
at
don't know why.
all.
Like, and you kind of get in this mode when you're, on social media in that way anyway, but you're receiving these things in a way that can be, I don't know, sometimes really problematic. But
Yeah.
yes,
How old are your boys?
18 is my oldest, and my youngest is 16, just turned 16. And the 18-year-old, we just went to DC this weekend. He got into a bunch of colleges, but he decided that he very seriously is interested in Howard. Um,
Oh, good for him.
yeah, he feels like going to a historically Black college will have an impact. These are his words. Um, will have an impact on who he is as a man in the world, and it's not just about the education. He said, I think I'll get a fine education," because we had an interview at Northeast, or he got into Northeastern. He got into a bunch of schools, interview at Yale, whatever. But I love how he's thinking about this. It'd be really easy to just go, whichever one has the lowest acceptance rate, that's the college that I'm gonna go for. But that's not what his process is. So it feels like maybe I did something right. Maybe we did something right.
Maybe a little something. Good for him. I think it also helps to water. It helps to provide some fertilizer for when he gets into the world.
An inoculation in many ways from you know, Black and brown folks, just like the challenges that we will experience in the world. You're going to go into that world, and what you experience on a HBCU campus is not like any other thing that you will ever have in your life. And so it can function as a like inoculation, as a support, empowering. And we'll see what he ultimately decides. I told him, whatever you do, I got you. So
That's exciting. That's
yeah.
exciting for your family. Tell us a little bit about, I want to kind of talk a little bit about how you discovered that art chose you.
Hmm.
Like, how did that happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, I am not the kid who is, wanting to be an artist his whole life. Um, Painter anyway. Um, I think I was relatively creative, I suppose. Music was really my big thing. That was the thing that I was focused on. And when I was in high school, I did incredibly poorly in school, and music was refuge for me. So I wasn't thinking about going to college or anything like that. But at some point after college, I met this really wonderful woman, and I wanted to start dating her. And she was 4 years older than me, and she was just graduating from college. I was literally just getting out of high school, not thinking about college at all. And to make a long story short, she was like, "You're a really nice guy, but it doesn't seem like you're very much thinking about your future." And so, we can like talk and stuff, but you know, I don't think this is gonna go very far. Thinking about graduate school right now, and so, I've told this story a lot, but kind of as a joke, I went down to the junior college and registered for some classes, and came back and said, "I'm thinking about my future now." And she thought it was funny, and we went out, and I realized that I was going to have to go to those classes that I had randomly signed up for if I was going to remain in this relationship, um, or lie about it, which I was unwilling to do. So I really wasn't paying attention to the classes that I registered for, but I registered for an art history class, and it was the decision that would probably most drastically changed my life, because it was in that class that I discovered that I had a visual intelligence that was never required of me in any other context. Normally, you take a class, you read some information, and you get a grade. This class asked me to remember to understand things based on visual images. Um, and for some reason, my brain liked that. It just was like, it had been thirsty for that, longing for that kind of access. And so I got a I got a B in that class, which was like, I didn't get B's. My GPA was 0.65, decimal point first 65. I was failing most everything in high school. So when I got a B in that class, I was like, wait a second. You telling me I'm not stupid? Hold up. Because as a young person, you begin to internalize, those red F's on that piece of paper. You begin to take very seriously what the counselor said. You should. This is one of the counselors at my school. You should just stop coming. You're not, like, I don't know why you're here. You're not trying. But it wasn't that I wasn't trying. It was there was a lot going on. Frankly, the movie was going on. What you saw in Exhibiting Forgiveness was going on while I was trying to, balance everything else. So, yeah, that art history class changed things for me. And fast forward to the end, I actually married that woman, and we are still very happily married.
And you found a path.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You found a path, and
That
she
was a
helped you to
win.
find that.
That was a win. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Um, may we all find that thing,
Mm,
may we all find that thing that our intelligence connects to, that thing that awakens our intelligence,
yeah,
because we all have it
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, for sure. I think we often find ourselves in a situation where we're surrounded by people whose brains function different than ours. And those kinds of brains are being rewarded for the way they function. And so we feel bad just because it doesn't work that way. But if you find the right context for yourself, then success is around the corner. Because every that little just getting that B in that class made me stop and go, I'm not stupid. Huh. This was just a problem because I was thinking about it this way. But if I turn my academic experience into images, then maybe I can succeed in these other areas too. And there was a a counselor at my junior college. I'll never forget her. Her name was Maria Romo. She is the one that really helped me figure out these other strategies for learning. So I went from 0.65 in high school to being on the dean's list in junior college, and then transferring over because of my grades to the state college, and then going on to Yale after that. So that would have never happened if I hadn't found that linchpin, and that was visual intelligence.
Yeah, I appreciate that you remember each one of those kind of marker points,
Oh, for sure.
because it's kind of the breadcrumbs to where you are today and um what you've been able to accomplish as a man,
Yeah.
as a creative, and as a father, and and a husband. That's amazing, because a lot of times we try to forget that, like back in that, that's not who I am now, so I'm just going to act like that didn't happen.
No, no. I mean, I've sat down and just made a list of the saints in my life, and when they came in for their particular rescue mission. Um, and so I think about this a lot. And Maria was definitely one of those saints. My wife was one of those saints. That's important to me, and that is again something that I share with my sons a lot. Is I am not the same person now that I was then. I mean, my son and I have been talking about this recently. You know, um, the person that you are when you enter into college, and by the time you have kids or something, hopefully you
Hopefully.
have evolved. Like,
Yes.
hopefully you have
More
changed.
than a little bit.
Yeah. But like we sit around and I don't know, we ask 18-year-olds to make decisions, and they have to, but make decisions as though they are aware of what they will be when they are 30. They don't know. Most of the people I know who went to college are doing something very different from what they went to college for. So that tells me that college is about more than just the degree that you leave with. And these are the kinds of conversations that, like, I think my children have internalized at this point.
Yeah. My grandson, Xavier, is going through that process now. And I remind him that there's a lot of pressure, to like make a decision. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? And the truth of the matter is that ask a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old what they want to do with the rest of their life. And they may know, knowing what you, and I didn't use this language, but I'm paraphrasing, knowing where your intelligence is,
Mm,
that's the goal. Like,
mm,
figure out what you're good at, what makes you feel alive. I literally had this conversation with my grandson yesterday. Um, just what is the thing that makes you feel alive?
yeah.
And for me, it feels like this. It's kind of like a buzzy, like I just feel like I'm standing in God's light and the God's right here with me dancing. Like that. Have you ever felt that?
Yeah, some people never ask themselves that question.
Yeah, because they don't know to ask.
I think it's important to acknowledge that it is a necessary question, and there is a degree of privilege that the question itself represents. What I mean by that is, my mother was 15 years old when I was born, so work was about paying the bills.
Hmm.
It wasn't about what brought her joy at that point. It was just like, I got to pay the bills. And so she did whatever she could. And generally, she had at least two jobs when I was growing up, to make sure that, things were okay for us. And I want my children to be able to accept that as a gift, that you have this opportunity to be able to think through this situation based on what feels good in your soul, not just simply, we've got to make this money, we've got to do this. Like, um, I have to believe that there is something that is empowering and powerful about going through life with that as your lead, as opposed to just, you know, I just got to pay the bills. I just got to pay the bills, and that is a privilege. It is absolutely, absolutely a privilege.
Do you know that we have a line of Shaping Freedom wellness products? Each are beautifully crafted and designed to support you in cherishing your mind, body, emotions, and soul. Carve out a sanctuary in your life with our Luxe sustainable yoga and meditation mats, essential oil candles, and more. Embrace self-care and reflection with every item, lovingly created to enhance your daily practice of spending time on you. Elevate your wellness journey with Shaping Sanctuary Collection, because you deserve to feel balanced, nurtured, and inspired. Visit shapingsanctuary.com for more information. So as we meander toward exhibiting forgiveness, I'd be remiss if I didn't stop to ask you, for those folks who are looking to be a creative or who are artists who are watching and listening, what are a couple of things that you can share for them? Like what are three things that they should bear in mind?
About making a film in particular.
Not about the film. Let's stop at the visual art for a moment. because you sat up
Oh,
in your chair for that one.
oh, yeah.
We'll get to that.
um,
We'll get to that. But
uh,
about being an artist, because there are so many
mm,
folks who are very talented and who are really committed to being an artist, and
yeah,
and you have experienced and created incredible success for yourself. You've gotten a lot of the very well known people in that industry to look at you, to put your work on their walls.
yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I would say is that this industry is fickle, and what they like now, they will not necessarily like tomorrow. So make the thing that you love to make. Make the thing that you will be happy making, regardless of if anybody else likes that thing. Because there's no guarantee that they will like it, and then once they like it, they might stop liking it. And so you better damn well be sure that this is what you want to be doing, or at least this is the exploration and the journey that you want to be on. I have found myself in many points in my career where it's like, oh, Titus, that thing that you do, particularly with me because I do a lot of different things, that thing that you do, we love that thing. Can you stop doing all those other things and just do that thing? So that would be the first thing, is like, do the thing that you want to do, that you feel passionate about, that brings you joy. That would be number one. I think the other thing is, uh, especially if you've gone to school for your creative practice, uh, you have to relearn how to hear your own voice. When you first get out of school, what you will experience is you will hear the voice of your professors while you're in the studio making your work. And for a while, that will get you through, but at some point you need to know what it is I want, what it is I feel compelled to do. It takes time to hear that voice. It takes time, for you to get to the point where your authentic expression is coming through your work. It ain't gonna happen overnight. And then the other thing is, I would say, get comfortable with failing. Um, I One of the other saints in my life. Uh, am I allowed to say use profanity on this podcast?
You heard me do it. I'm
Okay,
from
all
Brooklyn.
right. So one of my one of my professors, who was very much one of my saints. His name is Rupert Garcia, political artist, from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He's still alive, and he used to say, if everything you make succeeds, you're not fucking trying hard enough.
Mm.
And I kind of, in my studio, I sort of live by that. You can get to a place where, like, you know how to make a thing. I can just keep doing that thing over and over and over and over and over again. And it'll get easier and easier and easier. And for me, I'm interested in that moment where I don't know what I'm doing. Like, that's the thing that energizes me in the studio, where I'm like, wait, this is not working. Like, how do I make this work? Like, what's happening with this? And you try something and then you're like, damn, that didn't work. Okay, okay, okay. Next time I'll do this. Next time I'll try that. Maybe I'll do it on canvas instead of linen. And like, you are learning, and that failure, um is an evolution in your practice. I believe strongly that every piece of art that you make teaches you a lesson. So learn those lessons, make those pieces of art. There's so many folks who are so in their heads about the work that they want to make, that they actually never put pen to paper and create the thing that they want to create. And so if you don't do that, then you don't learn the lesson. Even if you struggle, even if you quote unquote fail at it, you've learned the lesson. So the next one, there will be growth. So I think that would probably be the last thing, is that I would say, is like, get comfortable with the idea that it's going to fail. This one's not going to work. That one's not going to work, but the next one might. And be okay with that. Can I do four?
Yeah, and I'd love for you also to add in a couple that are on the the business side of it, kind of
Uh,
the business acumen,
uh,
things that I know.
okay. Okay. The other thing is related to the beginning. We're talking about loving what you do and not what you do. Learn to love the process, right? Um, it's not about the product in the beginning. It's really, really not about the product. It's about the process. If you learn to love the process, eventually you will get to the product that feels satisfying to you. But if you can't get yourself to lock in the studio, you can't commit to the process, then the product that you want in the future will never manifest. So get comfortable, fall in love with the process, and give yourself some space to allow the product to just be the thing that happens through the process, but focus on the process.
I love that. I think that, and that is, I wrote that down. I've written down a few things, but I think that how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you can
Mm,
get comfortable in the process of whatever the thing is that you're not completely certain about, it will help because there are lessons in there.
yeah, you're talking to me right now.
Me too. It literally this just happened this weekend
I've,
where I was like,
I've yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know what's going on. I like to know what's going on.
yeah, yeah.
And I this was medicine for me today. Thank you.
So when COVID happened, my kids were in school, and before they were in school, we did homeschool with them. I had a very energetic youngster who I didn't want to just put into the school system to be labeled as whatever. He's a problem. He is this. He is that. Because I lived through that, I felt like we as a family unit can help him get sorted. It's going to take a while. He's going to be at first he's going to be a little bit behind his peers, but he will catch up as I did.
Mm,
And so we did this homeschooling thing. And then when we felt like he was getting caught up, he was ready, we put him into school, and he's been very, very successful. Very successful. But during COVID, nobody had school. So we had to go back to the homeschool situation. So we did what we called COVID camp. We set up in my studio, and all of my friends' children met at the studio, and we had classes. So Reginald Dwayne Betts, my friend who is the poet, he taught poetry and writing. Another friend of mine who works at NPR, she taught podcasting. A journalist of friend of mine taught journalism, and I taught painting. And so as I was with my son's friends, there was I think we had like 12 young people in the class. Um, this idea of process, not product, it was the mantra. I
mm,
had some kids who really loved art and were excited about doing it, and other kids who felt like failures. And so I would say, I want you to understand something. I do not care at all what this looks like. This is not about what this looks like. This is about loving the process. So we're going to make this drawing, and it's going to be a contour drawing. It's going to be a continuous contour drawing. And you are not going to look at the page. You are going to look at the model, and you're just going to keep drawing really, really, really slow. And when we're done, we're going to look at it for 2 seconds, and then we're going to ball it up and we're going to throw it away, because it's not about that thing. It's about the process. I promise you, if you lock your eye and your hand together, those things connect, your mind, those things connect, we'll eventually get the product. But that's not what we're at right now. We're just into the process. So just don't think about what's happening. Okay, do it again. All right, you got it. You're looking, paying attention. Good job, good job, good job, good job. Done. Look at it a couple of seconds. Okay, ball it up, throw it away. Right? There was so much freedom for the kids who didn't think that they were good draftsmen to be able to do that, because it meant two things. One, they were getting into the process. Two, they didn't get long enough to stare at it to go, oh my God, that's terrible. It sucks. And then they look at their friends and they go, oh man, his is good and mine is bad. No, 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 no. All of ours are being thrown up. All of ours are being thrown up. Nobody is doing that. And inevitably, when you use that as a model, the kids get better. They get better, because the thing that stops so many of us is our judgment of the thing that we've done. And that judgment stops us from falling in love with the process.
That is a beautiful experience for them to have had. And I think also the ability to have that experience with other people, with their peers, is a magnificent gift
Yeah.
to them from you, you know? Because then it's like it's just about your going through your process, and it's deeply intimate, and just get rid of it and keep it going, which I
You know
think
what's
is,
hilarious? I know that about painting. It's I think about that a lot, but it wasn't until you just said how that can impact life that I was like, oh yeah, that does align with some other aspects of life. There are certain things that it's just like we have to do this. I don't I don't know how this person is going to respond to me, but I need to act out of kindness, and I need to learn to be okay acting out of this place of kindness. They're going to do what they're going to do. I have no control of that. But for me, my motivations are going to be out of love and kindness. That's how I'm going to walk through the world. And so if sometimes it's like sometimes like yeah, but that person didn't give me a hug back, or yeah, but that person didn't do the thing that I wanted them to do after that, then you're like, so I'm not going to do that anymore. So I'm done with being nice to people.
which is like kicking yourself in the face. Like it doesn't make sense, but it does in some ways. It's like until you get the tools, until you do the work, until you have the opportunity to really dive deep, you live
Yeah.
in the prison of wanting to find a way to feel better.
Mm,
And sometimes it's through that false sense of safety, where it's like, I'm going to keep you out there. I'm not going to receive that. But the
yeah.
problem with that is that when you lock people out of your experience, when you lock people out of your failures, when you lock people out of the process, you also you have to lock yourself up in
Mm,
order to do that. You're locking them out, but you're inside. You're in the door. You're in the
yeah.
room with the door closed.
I think also in terms of sharing, going back to what we were talking about with sharing um, those experiences with your children, if your kids just see you go from this doesn't work to success, then it feels like magic. It just feels like magic. And that feels like, oh, I'm just not magic. That's the problem. Dad was magic. I'm not magic. And therefore I'm going to fail. But if they watch you climb up, if they watch you struggle through this thing and say, we did this, you saw me claw myself out of this hole. It's like, oh, that's how you do it. You are going to have to put this energy in this way. And that's a part of life. And that way I don't have to be terrified when that happens to me. Like, yeah, I remember when that happened. So I with my children, I often, when they're going through something and they're like, Dad, you don't understand because, you know, everything is going great for you and you just made a movie and blah, 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 blah. And like,
It's like,
this is how they sound. This is how they sound. And I'm like, I will go back to certain moments and we'll talk through that. One moment that we go back to a lot with my oldest son is I was working on my not-for-profit Next Haven. And
mm,
and I was trying to buy this building, this 45,000, at the time it was 20,000 square foot building, and it was owned by this criminal who was running illegal businesses out of the building, and he was unwilling to sell it. He didn't really care, um, and I got to a point where I was just like, I'm I quit. I came home and I was like, I quit. I'm done. Forget the not for profit. I'm just going back to the studio. I'm not worried about all this stuff anymore. And Sabian couldn't have been like more than 9 or 10. He looked at me and goes, Dad, you can't quit. What do you mean? And I was like, it stunned me. Like he looked up at me in a way and I was like, oh, you saw that. You saw that. That's right. You're always watching. And I said, I'm feeling some kind of way, but why do you think that I can't quit right now? He's like, because you told me about all the good stuff that the program is going to do. Like our neighborhood needs that. And I was like, "Mm, okay, you're right. You're right. Okay. Okay. Then I'm gonna have to find some other way, but it's gonna take some time." He's like, you'll figure it out.
Wow.
And so we talk about that a lot, and just having my son stop me and just like bring it all back. It's like, okay, it may take me a while to get to the thing that I want to get to, but he's right. I just can't stop right now. I can't give up on this. If this is something I truly believe in, I'm gonna do the work.
Do you have one business tip for an artist? And then I want to move into talking
I
about.
have several. So at Next Haven, which is the not-for-profit that I started, we support Black and Brown artists. We give them studio space. We give them money. We give them a curriculum based on the business of art, because even if you go to a school like Yale, generally the business of art is not taught. So in our curriculum, one of the classes that I actually teach is gallery scenarios. And what my textbook is for that class is 20 years of emails and correspondences redacted of my failures that we read through in class. And we just go through these correspondence, and I'm like, you see that there? You see the fact that we are having this whole conversation, and not once did I submit a consignment agreement. So there was no legal grounds for me, no legal recourse that I had to engage with him. But yet I kept going, and I sent him that piece, and now I don't have that piece anymore. You see, that was the mistake. So we do that in the class. And then the other thing that we do is we do a lot of role playing in the class. So I'll take two students and I'll say, you're the gallerist, you are the artist, you have to leave the gallery.
Wow.
Action. And I treat it like a scene, and I direct them through that scene. And a lot of times it's the situation where the artist is like, well, I've been kind of thinking about, maybe I should, I, I'm not that comfortable with, and they're humming high, and I have to stop them and say, you need to be direct. You need to say the thing that you actually want to happen. Because I believe that if we give them, like, we practice everything else, we practice all kinds of things. We practice writing, but we don't practice these kinds of difficult conversations, these kinds of interactions. And so when we do practice it, when it happens, you're like, I've done this before. I've done this before. It's a little bit easier. So um, consignment agreements. If you're artist working, you need to understand your consignment agreements. You need to have a lawyer that has a consignment agreement that's written for you. Now, you can use a gallery's consignment agreement, but you should make sure that somebody else looks at that first, because whoever wrote it, that consignment agreement is going to prioritize the person who wrote it. It's not necessarily going to prioritize you. So you need to figure out that from the beginning. That's the first thing. Other thing is, even if you have a gallery, it's really important for you to know your collectors. I know we don't want to be involved with that. I know we don't like those conversations, and it sucks. And trust me, I know that it sucks sometimes. But in terms of those moments where you're in between galleries, where you don't have a gallery, it's going to be your relationship with those people who are collecting your work that's going to give you a chance to bridge. And if you don't have those relationships, then you're stuck. So I've been without galleries many times in my career, and sometimes it's economically better for me because I have those direct relationships. And so it's work. Make sure that's clear to you. This is work, and this is part of the process. When you get a gallery, it's nice. They can take care of that. They can do that. But sometimes you're going to have to step back in and manage your own shit. So that would be the other thing.
HeraHub Carlsbad is a co-working space and member community designed to empower entrepreneurs. More than just a workspace, HaraHub Carlsbad is a business accelerator and a connected network of successful entrepreneurs. Imagine a collaborative, serene, and spa-inspired environment where you can thrive. Our unique community allows each member to be both a guide and a student, fostering leadership and continuous growth for both you and your business. Experience an uplifting, supportive atmosphere that will elevate your entrepreneurial journey. For more information about HaraHub Carlsbad or to schedule a tour, visit harahub.com/Carlsbad. We also have locations in Temecula, Irvine, Washington, D.C., and HaraHub Carlsbad is one of 3 HaraHub locations in San Diego, the others being in Mission Valley and La Jolla. I'd love to know, first and foremost, how can those who have an interest in supporting emerging artists, how can those folks support? How can we support that?
So, first, you can go to nexthaven.com and go through our website, find that donate button, and donate. As the president of the organization, I am required to say that. But we are doing, I believe, really important things. We are in a moment where tastes are shifting right now. Post Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, and all of this, a lot of people want to have a conversation about Black art and figuration and this kind of thing. And that's beautiful. But when it was happening, I was like, y'all need to be careful. People are not going to be paying attention to this forever. No,
That's
it's a
right.
sea change. It's a complete sea change.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, think what you want to think. But I remember when I got out of school, only thing people were talking about was Chinese artists. That was 2008. It was all about that. And then after that, there was a moment where there were Indian artists, and the art world does that. It's unfortunate because we want to believe that there is an investment in the ideas, and sometimes there is, and sometimes you'll meet those people, but a lot of times they're not, and it's very, very difficult. So we support Black and brown artists regardless of what tastes are, and we want to help guide them through making the best version of the art that they want to make, not necessarily what society necessarily wants to make. So as I said, we provide them funding, housing, and professional development. So we also have open studios in April. We're in New Haven, Connecticut, by the way. Open studios in April, so folks can come out to that and meet our artists. All of that stuff will be listed on our website. I will be there as well. I always am. My studio is just a few blocks away from the location, so people can definitely donate. We would really appreciate that.
Yeah. So this is Next Haven, spelled NXTHVN
So it's Next Haven without the vowels. NXTHVN.com. Yep.
Okay. All right. Wow. You know, sometimes you meet a person and like the more you learn about them, the more you're like, okay, that's cool. But you are a treasure trove of amazing things, sir.
I appreciate that.
Let's talk about exhibiting forgiveness.
Before we talk about that, can we talk about how we got connected as a
Let's do
result
it.
of that of me
Let's
trying to
do
work
it.
on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
So I read to my children when they were young, and it was very important to me to do so. And the book that they loved most was Life Doesn't Frighten Me at All, which is the Basquiat paintings, Jean-Michel Basquiat paintings, and Maya Angelou's words put together. And that was like, part of our bedtime routine, part of our calming routine. That was the book. And I knew when I made this film that it was really important to be able to use that book that in the film. And we were struggling to get permission to be able to use the book because there's 2 foundations. And Swizz and Alicia I was at their house and I was like, man, I really want to use this book and da 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 da. And he's like, you know, I know Lisane, right? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? And he's like, I can put y'all in touch. It's not a problem. I was like, what? Are you serious? And then because number one, we had been deep in this process. Our team had been focused on this for a long time. And I was already on set shooting, presuming that we were going to be able to use that book. And they were like, you can't use the book. And I was like, no. So when I took the break and went to Swizz, and he said he could hook us up, it was like it was a dream. And then I sent you
And
a
he called
piece.
me and he's like, this person, you know, this guy, really good brother, and blah, 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 blah. And he wants to use the
I didn't
book,
know
but
he
I'm
called
telling
you.
you,
I didn't know
he
that part. This is
did.
new to
He
me.
did. We had a whole conversation about this. And I was like, okay, all right. You know, what is it? What are we talking about? And that's what it was. But he went out of his way to call me to ask me.
Good people, man. Very good
Yeah.
people. Yeah, I'm gonna see them
Yeah.
Friday actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we went
Nice.
to the exhibition in Minnesota, the Giants exhibition.
Oh, the
Um,
one that it's just going over there, the Dean Collection.
yeah. So that's how we met. So it was in your generosity that we had our first engagement.
Janine and I talked about it, and she was thrilled. And so then, fast forward, so that happened. It's like, okay, you know, keep it moving or whatever. And Janine reaches out to me out of nowhere, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to this. I think I was going to be in New York. That's what it was." And she's like, "I'm going to see this film. You know, do you want to come to this screening with me?" And I'm like, yeah, cool. And we had a meeting at a museum right before. We hung out all day, and then we were going to, you know, come to see the screening. So we get to the space. You come over because we walk into the place, and we're all like, I don't know where we're supposed to go. And you're like, you know, you look a little lost or whatever. And we go downstairs to see this movie. I talk a lot, Titus. That is my gift. I talk. I love to talk. I watched that film. I sat down in that theater, the lights go down, the film starts. And right after, first of all, I'm sitting there and my brain is just popping off like, oh my goodness, like these are the
Mm,
conversations we need to be having.
mm,
We need to be having these conversations. And after the film was over, I couldn't speak. And you came over and said hello, and I could barely speak. And Janine was laughing at me, and she's looking at me like, what is wrong with this woman? And I said to you, I have so much to say, and this resonates so much,
mm,
and this work is so powerful, and people have to see this film. This film is important. And
mm.
when I get my thoughts together, I'll let you know.
I
And then I
remember that
did
part.
later. Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful film. It's a beautiful, beautiful film. And the themes and some of the things that happen and are covered in the film are part of process, right? They're
Mm,
not they're not meeting these characters in their finest hour all
mm,
the time.
mm,
But what I love about the film is that it exhibiting forgiveness is this beautiful piece of art that brings together the struggles of family, but also that deep throughway of
mm,
love.
mm,
And the fact that when we are within family, we are on a journey, and we are within that journey. And that journey is evolving us and changing us and growing us and hurting us. And sometimes doing the opposite of supporting us toward getting to where we need to be or
yeah.
where we want to be. And you did it so beautifully
Thank you.
and so authentically. And it wasn't, while the topics were, some of them were heavy, some of the
Hmm.
things that happened to the
Hmm.
characters were heavy and sad and all of that. Um, it was also a story of walking through. It was a story about the process, I guess,
Mm. I
is what
mean,
I'm saying.
we are having a lot of conversations nationally about generational trauma,
Hmm.
and I see this film as a key towards generational healing. Um,
Hmm.
and so as a result of that, there are some moments that we have to go through that are a little heavy, as you said, but ultimately we come out on the side of healing and hope. That's my desire for the film, that it allows people space to process their feelings, their experiences, and guide them out through this channel of hope and possibility. um, by watching one individual's process. And you're right, the film, it's not a rushed film. You do see people's process. You see this one artist's process, and how that process is a key factor in his healing, not just for him, but for his family as well.
Yeah, I think one of the most beautiful things about it for me was the challenge that we're sometimes faced with if we choose to take it, to create something. And I think that when we had a conversation about this over the phone, I think afterwards,
Hmm.
and it was just this one line out of the song, uh, that
Bricks. Yeah.
Bricks,
Hmm.
and it was making something out of something you didn't have or
Yeah.
something. I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing.
That's right.
Yeah. And that is what that film, that was one of many, but one of the messages within that film, which
Yeah.
is sometimes you don't have that, what they consider fairy tale life. Sometimes you
Yeah.
don't have this incredibly supportive environment that knows who you are, knows what your gifts and talents
Yeah.
are, and kind of like helps you to get there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go through it with people, uh, under the care of people who haven't gotten there,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then you go and you have children and you create a family
Hmm.
and you create a family culture of your own.
Yep.
And how do you do that when you're creating that
Yep.
new season for the Kafar? Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Kafar. Yeah, that's right.
Kafar.
Hmm.
When you're creating that new season for the Kafar family and for the Kafar legacy.
Yeah. I mean, it is important to me that when folks see the film, for those of us who have been through these challenged upbringings, that they recognize in the film that there are other possibilities. Um, and it is such a blessing and such magic in a way. We were talking about magic earlier, but it is this idea that you can do something different than what was done to you. To jump back into Next Haven for just a second, one of the things that we do in our program is we work with high school students who work with our fellows in the program. So we bring in these artists from all over the world. They come work, but high school students work with them. And so I find myself engaged with families, talking to parents about what it means to be an artist and art in schools and things like this. And I try to explain to people that it's art in schools is not just recreation. It's not just for fun. It's not a kind of nice to have. It's a need to have. And the reason it's a need to have is because what art does is it gives you what creativity does. It gives you the ability to imagine what doesn't yet exist.
Mm.
And when we take that away from poor communities, we are taking away their future opportunities. So if my father is a doctor and I become a doctor, that's hard work. But does it take the same kind of invention and creativity? No, it doesn't. I can observe that and become this. But if my father is an alcoholic, if my father is an addict, if my father is abusive, and I decide that I want to become a doctor, there is a degree of imagination, creativity, invention that takes that can be inspired by an investment in your creative practice. And if that is taken from you, that just makes it even more challenging to come to this new thing. That's what art does. Art allows us to bring into the world, to manifest what doesn't yet exist. And so as I think about the film, our main character is doing that in front of us the entire time. We are watching the we're watching his past while we are watching manifest a new present.
It's interesting. I just wrote down exhibiting in action because that really is what this film was about. It was us watching something happen. It wasn't this huge, climactic thing at the end. It was we were watching the character um, exhibit in the action of creating a possibility for forgiveness
That's right.
in
That's
his
right.
life.
That's right. That's right. And it was an incredibly emotional experience for me.
I would imagine. I would imagine. What did you want? So the film has been out, and where can people watch this film today? I know
Right.
I've seen it on Prime, I've seen it on
Yeah.
Hulu.
Any place you get video on demand, you can get it on Prime, you can get it on YouTube, you can get it on Vudu, you can get it on, but like, any of those places, it will be on the home for the next 5 years, starting, I think, next month, will be Hulu. That will be the main place that you get it. But right now, you can just go to Amazon and pick it up.
Why this film, Titus? What did you, if you imagined, what did you imagine for this film?
My wife and I are very different in a lot of ways. We're very different. And I think that's really good. It helps us balance each other. Um, but I never go into a situation thinking about all the things that could go wrong. That's just not how I operate, for better or worse. And that's sometimes a problem. Um, but my wife, she really likes to calculate things. If we do this, then this can happen, and then that can happen, and this can happen. I find myself following these passions with this faith that, like, if I'm honest and sincere about these actual feelings and this process, I will make it through to the other side. I don't know what's on the other side, but I'm feeling this drive and I'm going to go there. If I sat and thought about, well, that means I have to do this and that means I have to do that and that means I have to do that, which is a good thing to think through. I don't know that I would do half of the things that I do.
Unless it served to talk you out of it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And so I don't know that I sat down and said it's time to make a movie now in a sort of like official way. What I knew is it was time for me to begin to have conversations with my sons about my past before they go off to college. So he leaves next year. Sabian goes off to college next year. And it felt very important for me to clarify some things. When they were young, I went back to Michigan, where I'm from, to visit my grandmother. And when I was at my grandmother's house, my father showed up at the doorstep, and I hadn't seen him in 15 years. My wife and kids were with me, and their first question is, "Who is this guy?" And I said, "Don't worry about it." And I walked past and I said, "We're not doing this right now." I walked into my grandmother's house, and as we were there having a conversation with grandma, my father walked in the door, and I said, "This is not the time or place. We're not doing this. You can just go." And my grandmother at that point said, "Baby, you need to talk to him." So in the film, my mother and my grandmother are sort of a conflation of one character. They very much had the same spirit. Um, and so m- my children, when we got back home, well, let me step back. My grandmother insisted that I talk to him. And so I said to him, thinking that he would say no. I said to him, "If you want to talk to me, I get to film you because there's a lot that you have to account for." He said yes. I was surprised. I went to his house and I started filming. And that's where that piece of the film, in the film, in Exhibiting Forgiveness, come from. But since that moment, since my children were like, I guess, 5 at the time, um, they would say, "So, tell us more about your dad. Like, did you guys play like this?" "No, we didn't play. We worked a lot." Did he come? Did he come to your football games or wrestling matches? Nah, nah. It wasn't like that at all. And so they would ask questions, and I'd be like, "I'll tell you more when you're older. I'll tell you more when you're older." And it felt like, man, this is it. This is the time to tell them. And the film sort of grew out of that unction. It grew out of this desire to be open and share something with my children about my past and the legacy that I hope to pass on to them, and what I hope that they will continue to offer to the next generation of Kafars.
I did a similar thing with my daughter in particular. Um, we focus a lot on the rite of passage that happens for young people.
Mm,
And what I'd love for us to do more of is focusing on the rite of passage for ourselves as our young people are getting older,
mm,
because that was an incredible gift that you gave to your children, which is you're getting ready to step into a new season of your life. I'm going to bring your history to completion so that you truly know where you've come from
hmm.
and who I am.
Yeah.
When my
Yes.
daughter had my granddaughter, Emma, I think Emma was an infant. Before my daughter, Jessica, went into full parenting, I wanted her to have the opportunity to heal anything from her childhood
Mm,
that she needed or wanted to get resolved. And we actually went to On-Site, which is in Tennessee, and we went to this program and we sat in a room together for 35 hours that week, us and a therapist, and talked about all the things. And that was done with kind of the same intention, where it's like, all right, you're getting ready to be a mom. And she was, I think, 24 at the time. You're getting ready to be a mother. So I want you to have this. I want
mm.
you to be free of yourself and of anything standing in your way before you step into this new season.
That is a
And
beautiful rite of passage. That is, I mean,
like a movie, it's a
yeah.
beautiful rite of passage.
I mean, it's yeah, that's
Yes.
definitely a movie. That's definitely a
Yes.
movie. We could write that if you want to write that.
Oh,
Like,
wait, I'm talking about your movie,
no, oh
sir.
no. I'm
Oh,
talking about this. Like, this is yeah,
okay.
it's
It,
exhibiting
it was
forgiveness too.
it was beautiful, and so I think
Wow.
we're coming short on time, and what I want to we've talked about so many things. I'm so excited about this conversation, and there's so many things that we can talk about. We could be here for hours, and I think what I'd love to start to wrap up with is, as a parent, we yes, focus on the things that our children need to get to the next step, to get to the next season, to exit the season of childhood and to enter the season of adulthood, and understand that your role in that there's this wonderful possibility for you, an opportunity to help that young person to complete their childhood through healing.
Mm,
It doesn't have to be this huge, big thing. Sometimes it's the little things.
hmm.
But this is a great opportunity to just kind of sweep things up, whatever they are, understand what that person needs to heal, and to have some forgiveness between you and that young person
Yeah.
so that they can go into the world understanding process, understanding healing and forgiveness.
Was this something what you did with your daughter? Was that something that you longed for with you and your mother?
I had it with me and my mother. I had it with my mother. My mother, I think I longed for that with my father more than with my mother.
Ah, 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 ah.
Yeah. My mother was mentally ill, and I lived with my father. And the one thing that I did have with my mother, Matilda Basquiat, is she gave me the ability, she gifted me the ability to ask her anything that I
Mm,
needed to ask her.
mm,
She gave me the ability to ask her the hard questions. She gave me the ability to question the things and the decisions that she made that felt very personal to me, even when they weren't.
mm,
And she stood in what I really appreciate and respect about her. She's passed away, is that she stood in her decisions. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm so sorry I did that. She said, I did what I felt was the right thing to do.
mm.
And she was able to respond to my grief, to my anger, to my rage, to my hurt, to my snippiness with love, with kindness, with patience. And she allowed me to get it out. And she modeled something amazing for me. And this was a woman who was schizophrenic and who really fought through an identity that was placed on her that made her just about a mental illness
Mm-hmm.
versus
Mm-hmm.
about the human being that she was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Building with bricks. Wow, man.
Yeah. So that is a small peek into the myriad reasons why I love this film.
Mm,
And I love and appreciate what you've done and what you've gifted the world with. And this is one of those films that you must see. Um, and while it is about a Black family going through a thing, it is a story that can resonate with anyone
yeah,
about anything if you can just watch it and open your mind to the experience and the process.
yeah,
And I do believe that in the world that we're living in, forgiveness and deciding what to do with that,
yeah,
right? And we won't get
yeah.
into that whole story right now, but forgiveness is key.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Traveling light is key.
Mm, I like that.
Titus,
Travel
we have so much to talk about. And
Well,
I
you
don't
got
want
my
to
phone
let you
number,
off the
so
screen.
you know how
I
to get a
do
hold
have
of
your
me.
number. I do have your number. Any last thing you want to say before we break?
I do, and I know it's going to be big, so I'm going to try to do this fast. But we just talked about forgiveness, and that's such a fundamental part of the film. And I just wanted to say this one thing, which is something that I feel like I learned through the process of making this film, which is that forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. I think we conflate those two ideas, and we think because they're needs to be forgiveness. That reconciliation, that is the coming back together part, has to happen. And that's not always the way that it happens. Sometimes you're forgiving somebody who's dead and gone. And so the reconciliation part may never happen. But the forgiveness that the film talks about is a kind of unburdening, that you are willing to let go of this bag, this heavy burden that you're carrying. And sometimes you'll be able to reconcile, come back together. And sometimes you have to make a decision to make space between you and that other person. And that's okay. And I only want to end with that because I was never told that that was okay. Um, I was told that forgiveness and reconciliation, I was raised to believe that forgiveness and reconciliation are the exact same thing. And if you can't do both, then it's really not forgiveness. And I now recognize that that idea um, is problematic for a number of reasons that we can't get into. But yeah,
Okay. But watch the film.
and then we can talk about
And
later.
yeah, and we'll talk about it later. We will talk about this later. Titus Kaphar, you are an incredible human, a beautiful artist, and an amazing storyteller. And I thank you and appreciate so much the fact that you were willing to spend some time chatting
Absolutely.
with me
I hope it's not
this
the last
morning.
time.
It will not be. I got so many things to say, but I will talk to you about them after.
We'll get
So
it.
thank you.
Thank you. That was great. That was
That
really
was
good.
really good. That was
Yeah.
really good.